The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Well, hello and welcome to a beautiful Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. It's a beautiful day to be a Cincinnati sports fan, especially if you're a Bengals fan and a Xavier fan, because it was a great little Sunday. Great little Sunday nights. Elliot, you're half of that. You're half of that, but we've got a great show for you today. We really do have a great show. We're obviously going to talk a lot of Bengals. We're going to have Paul Fritschner on later on today to talk about Xavier and just kind of the craziness that went on with Selection Sunday, which as the years go on, I'm learning less and less, I believe, about how these teams, how this whole selection process goes on. Later on in the show, after we go off the air for the radio, so for our YouTube listeners, we are actually going to have Congressman Warren Davidson is supposed to appear in studio. Warren Davidson, he's going to be on here, so it's going to be really a fantastic show. We're going to talk sports with him, which is kind of a unique thing to ever get to talk to a congressman, especially here in studio. I'm Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner. As we mentioned, a lot has happened over the weekend here in the wide world of sports, or I guess the world of sports in Cincinnati, Ohio. But Elliot Rearing also in the room. Jacob's still out sick. Hopefully he's feeling better. I mentioned this off camera. If I'm sick for a day, I feel terrible and I'm like just kind of a baby about it. I couldn't imagine being sick for 4 straight days. But Elliot is not sick. He's in the room. He's looking dapper as ever. Elliot, how are you?
Thank you. Yeah, I was sick, I don't know how long ago, but I had the COVID for about a week, and it is terrible. I don't know what Jacob's got, but it sounds terrible. I'm out. I had a headache on, Saturday, and whenever I have any illness, any ailment at all, I think it's either cancer or I think it's the worst disease one can possibly muster up. If I had a fever for 4 days, I'd be out. I'd be in the ER saying somebody fix this because I can't do it anymore. So that sounds absolutely brutal. I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. Found out some great news about the Bearcats just now. So
The Crown, baby.
The historic Crown Invitational.
That's right.
One of the best invitationals this land has ever seen for you and me. So listen, I'm great. I'm not a big Saint. Are you a big St. Patrick's guy?
So Casey asked.
St. Patrick's Day guy?
Casey asked. I'm not Irish. My heritage is not of Irish. Casey's obviously is. McAllister. Didn't take too much deductive reasoning to figure that one out. But I'm of German heritage, and so we never really celebrated St. Patrick's Day. And one of the without a doubt, the oldest things about me, like the things that I'm absolutely a curmudgeon about, is like dressing up. And I know for St. Patrick's Day, you don't have to dress up. You're just supposed to wear some sort of green. I don't even like doing that. I'm not big on the whole dressing up. And it's funny because like my high school was green, my grade school was green, so I have just a slew of green things. I even looked at a green polo today for the show, and I was like, should I wear this? And I was like, nah, it's fine. But Casey is wearing green. Casey, it's here to celebrate the Irish heritage. Look at that. You can't really tell it's green.
You can't tell because the green screen.
That's right.
That's why I don't have anything green. But this was the closest thing to green, and it doesn't really it's kind of looks black.
You can kind of see it on the stream. The stream, it looks a little bit more green.
Yeah,
but it doesn't look.
It doesn't look like I'm wearing green. But I am wearing green. I am wearing green. Happy St. Patty's Day. I could have worn a more brighter green, and it says this is really weird. My family bought a bunch of shirts for St. Patrick's Day because we are Irish, and it says it's a McAllister thing with a giant green 4-leaf clover on it. I opted not to wear that one today.
It would be really funny if you wore like a lime green shirt, just like to celebrate the day. And he sat there, and it's just the back, the green screen, just blended in with the green screen. You got the skyline of Cincinnati, Ohio, just across your chest, wearing it like some people say, I wear my city on my heart. Casey, you'd be wearing Cincinnati on your heart.
I would be. I love this city, and I love what this city's teams are doing right now.
Yeah, a little
Extending
positive
guys.
vibes.
Yeah, we got some
good.
positive vibes today. I'm excited about today.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of city, down just like literally right 2 blocks down the road, where like our kind of downtown is, where like all the breweries, the brewery district, I guess. I don't know what it's called, but down there near the apartments and everything like that, they're doing a race. They're doing a 0.1K. 0.1K.
Yes.
100 meter race. You got to do it with a pint of Guinness to celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
What time is that at?
I really don't have. It probably already happened. It might have already happened.
Oh,
Maybe
we got to
it's
get
at
out there.
10:30. But you literally run from casual pint. You run 100 meters to Municipal Brew Works with a pint of Guinness or a pint of their beers, whatever. Loke, I think, is their Irish stout, and you're not judged on how fast you get there.
It's how much beer?
It's how much beer you lost.
Love that.
So I guess they weigh it before you leave, and then they weigh it when you get to the other side. Is how they do it. I've never done it, but that's just a great tradition.
Oh, we need to do that. I was always told I'm a great short distance sprinter. If you give me like a couple steps, I'm the fastest guy in the room. Just 5 steps, I can beat anybody. Usain Bolt, bring it on. Now, I will say I'm very bad. Like, we used to do Olympic Day at my grade school.
Yeah.
And Olympic Day, you do all kinds of silly little things. One of the competitions is exactly this. You have a bucket of water, and you have to run. I think it was a little bit longer, maybe. I think it was like a football field. You got to run a football field with a bucket of water. I notoriously was really, really bad at this. I went by just speed, which was completely not the game. The whole team has to fill up a giant bucket with your bucket, and you keep going until the bucket's filled. I would just dump the water out and just run across the field so the next guy could go. I wasn't even wasting anybody's time. I was notoriously bad at that game.
Yeah, field day. Field day is what they called it at St. Pete's, and those what?
Are you going to talk about your race?
Oh yeah, sir.
Marathon runner.
I mean, it was 9 miles. It was a mini marathon. So it's what's funny is I ran in the Hart mini marathon yesterday. Running has been come on lately. Really, my dad. I ran in a 10K for the turkey trot, and I called my dad kind of like be braggadocious about myself, and I told him my time, and he was just like, yeah, I mean, I did that like way quicker. So then I was just like, all right, well, I knew you ran the 15K, the Hart Mini. I've got to beat you in that, which I did. I beat him by 3 minutes. I was going for under an hour 30. I got an hour 28. But I will admit, when I took off, it was pouring down rain for the first mile, which was just not fun. And then it rained the last mile. But everything else was in between. I'm running next to Hollywood Hulk Hogan and all these different people that were dressing up. So you take off for the Hart Mini, which is 9.3 miles, and you're running with people doing a half marathon. And when you get to the end of the Hart Mini, the people in the half marathon, they go this way, and people doing the Hart Mini, they get off the highway because we were running on the highway, Columbia Parkway, to get onto 6th Street. And I never felt like I was so proud of myself because I could hear it in I got like timing in my ears to be like every time you reach a mile, be like, you did this in 8 minutes and 50 seconds. And I'm like, dude, I'm killing it right now. Then you get to the end, and I'm running with like 1,000 people, and 900 of them went off to continue on with the half marathon, and I'm one of the sorry sacks that went that was like, I'm done with today. That's it. And I was running next to like a 70-plus-year-old guy who was killing it. And I'm just like, all right, maybe I shouldn't feel as proud of myself for doing this because I was just like, I just felt so bad at the end. But I was, yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Running is something that is, it's new, and it's just you just go out there and you do it, and you just don't think about it. Like once you get going, you just don't even think about it.
Do you take a break at all? Like, was there ever like a walking point?
So no. There was a moment where I wanted to walk because in between the 5th and 6th mile, if you guys are familiar with Cincinnati roads, Torrance Parkway is right there off Columbia, and it is straight uphill.
Oh, God.
I mean, straight uphill. And you did that for about a third of a mile. And everyone told me that has done this race tells me when you get to Torrance Parkway, it's going to be miserable. Like you can't comprehend what it's like. And I actually think I would have been faster if I walked up the hill.
Oh my God.
Than the way I ran, because I'm just like trudging. Like you literally just for a third of a mile just go around this hill. What bolted me out of there is once you make the turn to go back downhill, they were handing out zebra cakes. If you've ever had a zebra cake, they're giving out a little piece of a zebra cake. So I was like, all right, I'll take the zebra cake, and that was fun. That was a fun little thing. And then once after that, it was good. It was fun, but it was a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna run in the Flying Pig half.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I can't do the full, but I think I'm going to run in the Flying Pig half, which is like in 6 weeks. Although the prices of these races.
Absurd.
Yeah.
So our fantasy football loser this year had to go do the Flying Pig. Well, Zach, if anybody knows me, they know my friend Zach Fries. He lost, and this guy paid. I don't know if he got
do the full.
No, half.
Okay.
Half. I don't know if he got scammed. He paid $170.
Yeah, it's $100. It's $150 to run the half.
I was like, what? Zach, I would have not had this be the fantasy punishment if I knew that was I thought it was like basically you get to do it for free. You pay for the T-shirt and you get to just run. But no, that is expensive. That is very, very expensive.
So the Heart Mini that I just did was like $60, which is a really cheap one. After I got done, I was like, all right, I can easily do a half marathon. I went to the Flying Pig and I think it was like $150 for the half marathon. And I was just like, I just don't want to do this now. And then I was texting my buddy who also runs, and he's running in the St. Petersburg. He lives in Florida. St. Petersburg half marathon. $400.
Oh, yeah.
$400 to run 13 miles, which by the way, you could do for free. Like I can just put on my shoes and just start running. No one's gonna stop me. No one's gonna stop me from doing that. But you do get a banana at the end of the race. You do get a banana.
And a medal. Sometimes they give away a medal.
Well, they give a medal to everyone, so I got a medal yesterday. But yeah, it was just you get a T-shirt, a medal, and that's what you pay for. But it is fun. It really is a fun little excursion that everything that happens. But we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get into Elliot's headlines, and we are going to talk about the Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins news. I think something finally happened in this city that I don't ever think I lost faith, but it was waning. It was waning. We'll talk about the Bengals, headlines, the wide world of sports when we come back. You're listening to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Remouse filling in for Justin Kinner. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Remouse filling in for Justin Kinner. Kinner texted me last night, said some things had come up. He texted me really late, and I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. We got a fun show for you today. Paul Fritschner going to come on later. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Muskies being in the first four, which is exciting news. I mean, they were dead in the water a month ago. I was talking to one Xavier fan, and he said this might be the most gratifying season as a Xavier fan ever. You know what? I'm not even going to tease it. That was Nick Kirby that said that. And then later on in the show for the YouTube, we're going to have Warren Davidson come in the studio. We're going to talk sports with him. I'm sure it'll give him a fun avenue because he doesn't get to talk about a whole lot of sports. Threw the first pitch out at the Miami Redhawks baseball game on Friday because he helped one of the Miami Redhawks get a visa. He's from the DR, Dominican Republic. So he got a visa to come up here to Oxford to play ball, which is really, really exciting stuff. But without further ado, Elliot's headlines.
Oh.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
That's right. No whistle. Nobody touched that whistle. That whistle actually might have to get thrown away at some point or burned.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's. In fact, that being there is stressing me out as I talk about it. But yes, the biggest college basketball news just came out today at 9:40 on FS1. The Bearcats are taking on historic DePaul in the most historic basketball invitational in the world, the Crown. April 1st, April Fool's Day at 3 p.m., the Bearcats will be taking on DePaul. That's a Tuesday. Have a great day that day. We're all going to watch it. It's going to be a fun time. Wes Miller all the way back when he puts. Can you imagine this? Wes Miller putting on the crown in a king's garb, celebrating the championship of winning the crown.
Would love that.
With 4 active players.
You said that game is on April 1st. That game is too soon. They need to push that one back. It is March 17th. That's only like 2 weeks away. We need that to be at least May. Like they gotta properly practice. They gotta properly prepare. It's too far away.
Oh, that's such a joke. Good luck to the Bearcats, though, as they play DePaul. But DePaul, by the way, longest active major program in Division I college basketball to not make a tournament. 21 years. 21 years.
I think they joined the Big East 21 years ago. I think the Big East wanted to get them in, wanted to get that lucrative Chicago money, because everyone knows when you think of Chicago sports, you think of DePaul. And they wanted to get that Chicago money, and they've just been terrible.
Oh, boy. But we'll go over to the actual basketball. Michigan, we'll do the scores from yesterday's conference championship games. Michigan, they win the Big Ten after trailing by nearly 20 against Wisconsin, 59-53 the final. They get a 5 seed. Now, I saw a lot of people complaining about that, and I guess we'll talk about it today. But it does seem a little bit crazy that you win four games, 4 wins late in March, and your reward is one of the tougher 12 seeds, and you get a 5. It does seem a little bit brutal for winning the Big Ten. But nonetheless, that's where they'll be playing. I'll be betting against them. Go UC Davis. Memphis, they win the American after handling UAB 84-72. Kind of a close game for a majority. The last 8 minutes or so, Memphis took control. VCU, they win 68-63 to take the A-10 crown. A lot of Xavier fans stressing about that one as well for bid stealers, which really, I don't even think there was a bid stealer. Maybe one bid stealer, which is kind of wild. Yale, they win the Ivy League 90-84. Good for Yale. And Florida, they take the SEC, beating Tennessee 86-77. Florida now the odds-on favorite to win March Madness. Them and Duke are pretty much tied for number 1. Going over to the NBA, the Thunder, they beat the Bucks 121-105 despite Giannis triple-double. The Lakers, they get a win over the Suns 107-96. Luka 33-11-8, another great game for Luka. Speaking of Luka, the Mavericks, they lost yet again, this time to the Sixers 130-125. For those keeping score, again, they don't win games. And by the way, a report came out. I think it was on Saturday it came out. The Mavericks might not have enough eligible players to finish their season. Basically, half their team's comprised of 10-day contracts. So good luck. A team, by the way, that prioritized health. Doesn't have enough healthy players to finish out the season after trading their generational superstar. I said this yesterday. I said this to a buddy yesterday. If I were a Mavericks fan, like a diehard Mavericks fan, I would go to 30 games a year. Every single second of my day, every hour, would be spent plotting and scheming away to make the Mavericks organization worse than the day before. Every single day, I would be plotting to make that organization worse. What a disgrace that they have brought upon their fan base. Yikes. Going over to the Reds, they lose yesterday to the Mariners 8-3. Spring training doesn't matter. Ellie did reach on a walk, which means he has reached safely, I believe, in every single game he has played this spring. That's pretty cool. Gavin Lux hasn't had a great spring. He hit a double yesterday. Singer tossed 4 1/3, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. And Ian Jabot and Taylor Rogers, they did struggle. But despite that, again, the Reds look to be okay. Obviously, we found out some other news. Will Benson will be starting the year in AAA. And obviously, we have injury news regarding Tyler Stevenson that happened late last week. So Tyler Stevenson will not be ready for opening day.
That the Will Benson stuff hurts my heart. I remember when, I don't keep as close of tabs on the Reds as certainly everyone else in this room does. But I remember saying, I believe in Will Benson. And Elliot and Jacob looked at me. This is a month ago. They looked at me like, he's not making the opening day roster, buddy. And I was like, that kind of blew my mind. And I was like, oh, shoot, I guess you're right. And then I thought about it for 10 seconds, oh, he probably won't. Still believe in Will Benson. So I'll say this quick thing about spring training. Tomorrow the Cubs play their first game, 6A, here on the East Coast against the Dodgers. Spring training stats don't matter. That being said, a little worried about old Kyle Tucker, who in 40 plate appearances has 1 hit this spring. He went 0 for 8 in the Tokyo Expedition game. So all right, we'll see what happens.
Get ready to learn Mike Moustakas, buddy. Finally, the players, it happened this morning. It just concluded right before, I believe, the start of this show. Rory is the winner of the Players' Championship on St. Patrick's Day. Good for Rory. He wins it. Still not a major technically, but he does win the Players after a 3-person playoff had to be had this morning. But yeah, by the way, I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the phone incident with him last week?
Nope.
So there was a fan, I believe he was actually a collegiate golfer at the Players, and he heckled Rory during a practice round. And he said, just like Augusta, I forget what year, and Rory comes over to him, takes the kid's phone, and just walks away with it. Just walks away with it. The softest guy in golf. But have a championship, Rory. Have a championship. Those are your headlines.
Yeah, so we go through the headlines. Obviously, the biggest headline here in Cincinnati is the news that broke last night about your Cincinnati Bengals that finally, Jordan Schultz was the one that announced this, that the Bengals got an extension with Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins pretty much across. It's done. Yeah. It's done. Like there might be some small details filing out. I will admit that I was very happy that this finally happened because I went to bed before this news broke. Truly did. Didn't even know about this. Truly did not hear about this till I woke up at 5 a.m. And I went to bed with a take in my mind, knowing I was hosting the show, ready to say that I was completely tired of hearing about how close they were. Because we heard it before going into last week, Sunday. Tee Higgins' deal will be done before free agency started. Didn't happen. And then we heard on Friday night, I believe the first big news was that this deal is all but done. I think it was James Rapine that reported that. I think it was James Rapine.
That was Saturday, but
it was Saturday. Yeah. Okay, but it was before this deal had eventually come across and gotten over the goal line. And here we are. The deal is done. Jamar Chase is going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the sport. Not bad for a cheap franchise. And Tee Higgins gets a deal done where it's 2 years of money guaranteed on a 4-year deal worth $115 million. And people around, I'm just warning you, the goalposts are going to move for us Cincinnati Bengals fans. And the end-all be-all when it comes to being a sports fan isn't about what other people are going to say about you. But we've heard for the longest time, why can't the Bengals get these deals done? Why are they so cheap? Now that the deals are done, the conversation is going to be, and I think it's a fair criticism to have. I think it truly is a fair criticism to have. Is this the best way to construct your roster in the NFL? Because, quite honestly, in the history of the National Football League, it hasn't been the best way to construct the roster. What wins in the National Football League oftentimes is quarterback and the trenches, letting everything else fall where it may. But you've got to understand one thing here in Cincinnati. The reason that these deals had to be done, and every time I bring this up, I have to mention the wise words of Casey McAllister, who kind of shook my brain because I was always trying to be the trendy guy. What do the best teams in this league do? Well, they get top tier interior, or they get top tier linemen and defensive linemen and all this stuff. They work at the trenches. And Casey one time told me, I don't like the Bengals giving away elite talent, and that's exactly what Tee Higgins is. Because we always knew Jamar Chase was going to be here for the long term. Tee Higgins is an elite talent. Is he sometimes banged up and can't play on the field? Absolutely. But we know what this offense looks like when there is Joe Burrow, when there is Tee Higgins, and when there is Jamar Chase out on the field. And for the foreseeable future, that three-headed monster on offense is going to continue to be here in Cincinnati. So I want to give credit to Joe Burrow. I know Elliot a couple weeks or maybe even a month ago, I think it was during Pro Bowl week, when he was like, I like what we're doing here in Cincinnati. I like what Joe Burrow putting the screws to, also a fair gripe, a cheap front office. And here they are, this same front office that is deemed cheap made Joe Burrow at the time the highest paid player in the history of the sport, and made Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of this sport. So I want to hear your guys' opening remarks, your opening opinions on this deal finally getting across. Because I think you were waning on that you thought that this was even going to happen.
I certainly doubt it. I did not think it was going to happen. Once we found out, I don't know what, Saturday or Friday, whenever we got the inkling that it's likely trending in the right direction, then I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. But still, there's doubts in your mind about whether or not the Bengals are actually capable of making a move. And I do think it's funny too that, like, for I would say a better part of a month now, every comment that has, or every post on X or every look that had anything to do about the Bengals, it's go down to the comments. Bengals are cheap. Bengals stink. Bengals don't pay anybody. Yada yada yada. They broke the news yesterday, and the first comments like, oh, so they're going to pay the offense, not the defense. They're going to do, and it's just like, come on. I mean, we give us a little bit of a win. That was a win. If we go 1-0 every day, we're in a good spot. And yesterday we went 1-0, and I'm very happy. I'm very thrilled. We were talking about it last night as to who do we really credit. Do we give the Joe Burrow media tour the credit? Do we give Zach Taylor's culture that he's instilled here the credit? Do we give the agent of Jamar and T the credit for allegedly, pretty much putting the Bengals in a corner? And the report last night was that basically if you're going to get Jamar done, you have to get T done with it.
Right.
Basically, kind of like that. So I don't know who I'm going to credit. I'm going to credit the Cincinnati Bengals for being on top of it. Could they have got it done earlier? Sure. But they got it done relatively early, and I think it's a price that we all said that we expected it to be the case. Like $70 million was roughly the price that I thought that was going to happen. 40 for Jamar to be the highest paid player in the non-quarterback in the NFL, and then roughly around 30 for T, and he got him for 28.5 roughly. So I'm very pleasantly surprised about how it turned out. And I think Bengals fans should be excited. We talk about fan favorites a lot on this show. Having two bona fide fan favorites be here for the long term, that's something that not a lot of organizations have, and the Bengals have that right now with our three superstars on offense. So I'm very pleased.
Casey?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Elliot. I'm not going to go into super detail here because the segment's about to wrap up, but I think that many people should be very excited for this. This isn't just them keeping T and Jamar here for long term, being able to, it's about them breaking their contract structures. They gave Tee Higgins 2 years guaranteed on his deal to a quarterback or a non-star like Jamar. And I think that's a trend in the direction that we're going to start seeing more deals like this potentially in the future for this team going forward, that they're starting to become what I asked for, a modern-day franchise. That's all I wanted. I wanted them to just start becoming more modernized, start structuring deals in a way that can maximize opportunities for this year, which all reports are saying that those cap hits are going to come down. I think Jordan Schultz, the one who reported this deal, said that it's going to be roughly 10 to 15 million extra dollars in the cap space, which can go towards anyone else. It could go to Tevin Jenkins. It could go to Trey Hendrickson. And that's what really I wanted this whole time, is for them to just maximize what they have available to them. And I think they've done that. And they've been able to secure Tee Higgins for more than 3 years, for the 4 years. I think that's a big deal too. But yeah, there's a lot here to discuss. We'll go to the next segment.
Yeah, there is a lot to discuss, and we'll talk about it when we come back here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner on a Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner. We got Elliot Rearing and Casey McAllister in the room. We're talking Cincinnati Bengals, and for good reason, because a lot of news, and for what seems like the first time in months, positive news coming from Cincinnati camp, and that is that the Cincinnati Bengals have agreed to an extension for both their star wide receivers, something that just 2-3 years ago seemed impossible. Obviously, other teams have gotten it, famously the Philadelphia Eagles, who I don't know if you know about the NFL this past year. They won the Super Bowl, and they extended both their star wide receivers last offseason. And I have been on this show in the past, and I asked, I think at the time, you know, we've spent a lot of time talking about the Tee Higgins deal, what we're going to do with Tee Higgins, franchise tag and all that stuff. Always the plan was with Jamar Chase, because you simply cannot let a future Hall of Famer, a guy that was a Triple Crown winner, a guy that I think if you made a list of people that will be Hall of Famers, he's certainly on a short list. So we always knew that he was going to be here long term. But I think even I was skeptical about the idea of spending what is now $70 million on two skill guys. I was going to say non-essential, but I don't think that's the right nomenclature, because they are essential, because we've seen what they look like when they're both out on the field. Yeah, we've won games without Tee Higgins out there.
Losing record, though.
Sure, we've played well offensively without Jamar. But with them on the field, we know that this isn't a top half of the league offense. We know this isn't a top 10 offense. We know that with Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, and Joe Burrow out on the field, this is an offense that can take you to the heights of this league. That can take you to the Super Bowl. That can take you to the AFC Championship. And even in a year where we didn't make the postseason, go 9-8, you're looking at this offense knowing that if this team had a chance to dance, that they are as threatening as anyone in the league. I think I made a joke to my friends that when the Steelers were playing in the wild card round and the Bengals were eliminated, that I like the Bengals' chances of winning the Super Bowl more. Because there's certain teams that make the postseason that have no threat whatsoever. The Bengals, with this offense, will never be that team. Now, they might not always make the dance. They might not always get there, because we're still trying to figure out how to get it on the other side, how to get it right on the other side. But simply put, when you have a chance to lock up what could be a game-changing offense, when you have a chance to lock up what is an elite offense, what is a Super Bowl caliber offense, side of the ball, you do it. You figure out what the rest of the future holds. You figure out how to figure out this defense, how to make this defense competent enough to win games. When you have something elite, you do not let it go. That's what Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins are. That's what these two paired with Joe Burrow are, and that's exactly what the Cincinnati Bengals front office did. They figured out a way to get all these three under the same roof for the years forward. We drafted Joe Burrow in 2020. We drafted Tee Higgins in 2020. We drafted Jamar Chase in 2021. These are guys that we found. These aren't guys coming from elsewhere. These are guys that came here that are going to be, I don't want to say lifers for the Cincinnati Bengals, but they will be for the near future. There's a reason that when other teams, opposing teams, see us on their schedule, the same way that we look, oh, we got to play the Chiefs this year. The same way we look, oh, we got to play the Bills this year. That's what opposing teams do. That's what opposing defensive coordinators do. Oh, we got Joe Burrow week 8. We got Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase week 8. Good luck. We better score a lot of points. Because that's what it has to take to beat the Bengals. Like I said, they're still, I don't think this is a Super Bowl caliber roster all the way around, anywhere near it. Because there's a lot to be told on the defensive side. And there's even reports today that the Bengals are still trying to get Trey Hendrickson locked up here long term. We'll see if that remains to be seen. I'm a little skeptical on that one. I held faith on the Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins, especially just the way that they were talking, the way that Tee Higgins got the same agent, all those things, and it's done. So these guys are here. Now we can shift our focus into the next phase. We don't have these things holding over our head anymore. We can go look, all right, how do we solve this defense? All right, who the heck's going to play guard this year? How are we going to protect Joe Burrow? But go ahead, Elliot.
I was just going to say, like, it's an important step that they had to make. We're going to address, the Bengals are going to address the defense. They have to. We know this. They know this. Everybody knows it. The Bengals defense has to be addressed. The Bengals offensive line has to be addressed. But before those things get done, before we know what we have, we had to get these two things done. Joe Burrow asked of it, and those two players are crucial to the success of the Bengals. You can say whatever you want about saving money for the defense. You're betting on other players to come into Cincinnati and take over the mantle on that defense and make it better, right? I'm betting on Tee Higgins to be the player that I already know he is. I'm betting Jamar Chase to be the best wide receiver in the NFL for the Bengals, which I already know he is. Those are safer bets than the other side. We're going to address the other side, but I'm going to bet on every safe bet I can right now. The Trey Hendrickson thing, I get more frustrated talking about Trey Hendrickson than talking about any player in the history of Cincinnati sports. Your agent messed up. Your agent was the one that caused all of this for you, not the Bengals. The Bengals can be blamed for a lot, not for the Trey Hendrickson dilemma. They cannot. I hope they get him back for a year, and to be quite honest, I don't really care if they pay him. He's going to play anyway. And if he wants to sit out and pay fines every game, that's his choice. But the Bengals are going to have Trey Hendrickson play, right? The Bengals know that. They said, hey, Trey, go out and get a trade for yourself. Please, we're begging you. Go get the best deal possible. What did he come back with? Nothing. He's got no leverage now. So if I were the Bengals, in my mind, I know that. I'm like, okay, we don't have anything with him right now. Let's go fix the problem at hand where let's make our number one wide receiver and our number two wide receiver, which make our offense elite. I mean, we can sit here and say that they lose games 55 to 52. The fact of the matter is we're scoring 52 points. There's not a lot of teams in the NFL that have the offense that the Bengals have. Right. I said it last night. I'd argue it's the best offense in the NFL. So to retain that is very, very, very important. I understand fixing the defense. But in order to fix the defense, we had to know the deals. We had to know what was going to be done with those two. Now that that's done, like Reed just said, we take the next step, and that's going to be focusing on defense. You have the draft in about over a month, which you're going to be focusing on, right? You're going to be focusing on the defensive side of the football. I don't know how many picks. We got 6 picks as of right now. I'd venture to say 4 of those 6 are going to be spent on the defense, maybe 5. And I bet the Bengals draft a guard as well. So saying that, I'm very, very, very happy with what the Bengals did last night. I'm very, very happy because you had to get the first domino to fall to get this whole thing going. Last year, when you lost to the Patriots week 1, it was because of organizational ineptitude. That's why they lost. They didn't come out fast. They didn't come out like they cared because they waited for the Jamar Chase thing, and I think it boiled over. And I did think it hurt what was going on in that locker room. I firmly believe it did. The less of that heading into next season is of utmost importance because you win that game, you're in the playoffs, and then who knows what we're talking about right now. I don't want to hear about the Bengals being cheap, because they didn't pay Trey Hendrickson. They did everything in their power to extend Trey Hendrickson early. He just didn't like the deal like a day later. Like one day, like 23 hours later, he said, you know what, I want a better deal. It's like, that's not how this works. They're going to get something done with Trey Hendrickson. I firmly believe that. I know Reed said he was kind of a little apprehensive about it. So. I think at this point with these reports, I'm pretty confident that something's going to get done.
I like that they are working through those things. I just think that Trey Hendrickson, his value, I think he's earned the value he's seen around the league. He led the league in sacks last year on a defensive line that. They could put all their focus on Trey Hendrickson because he was the only defensive player worth a darn last year.
Yeah.
They can put every single point of emphasis on him, and he still led the league in sacks. That's valuable. Now, his value and what the Bengals are willing to pay, I think, are so far off. And I think the Bengals say, hey, we've already got you on a 1-year deal. We like our deal. We make these – when a deal is done, both sides are taking risk. Trey Hendrickson's risk is that if he turns out to be a 20-sack guy, $15 million a year, well, he's getting a little underpaid. And he is. He is getting underpaid. But the Bengals also take the risk in saying, hey, we make this guy a long-term deal. We get him $15 million a year. He might not be worth that at all. And obviously, he's worth way more than that. So it's just risk on both sides. When I look at the Trey Hendrickson thing, what I see is that he thinks I think he probably values way far north of what the Bengals are comfortable giving him. And I don't want to go into what I think would be a good deal. That'll be for another time on this show. There's plenty of months to talk about that because I don't think the deal is going to be done today.
In your perfect world, let me ask you this. I guess for both of you, in your perfect world, when you knew that the Bengals for sure could have brought one, or I guess 2 of 3 back, Trey, Jamar, and T.
Okay.
Who would your 2 have been?
So this is a good question, and this is what I'll say. Stay with me here because I'm going to give an analogy. My dad coached baseball for a long time. And he told me, if you have an elite shortstop and your third baseman gets hurt, if you have an elite shortstop and elite second baseman and your third baseman gets hurt, and probably the second best third baseman on your team is your shortstop, you don't shift your shortstop to third, your second baseman to short. The reason being, those 2 positions are already elite. You don't mess with that. You might take some licks at third base, but that just is what it is. And when I look at this Bengals team, I say, all right, so it's pretty clear that the reason that they didn't do what they wanted to do last year in terms of what they were able to accomplish was because of the defensive side of the ball. But I look at the offense and I say, that is a Super Bowl caliber offense. Yeah. Can you remove Tee Higgins from it and it's still probably pretty good and you can use that money to help out your defense? Absolutely. But when you have a Super Bowl caliber, what I believe to be a championship caliber offense, you do not mess with that. And that's where this offense still has room to grow, which is crazy. They still need a power back. They still need better guards. They had the worst guard play in the NFL last year, and it was championship caliber on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not messing with it. I'm continuing that same offense. I'm going to continue roll through and even try to improve it if that's even possible. And I'll try to figure out in a different way the defense because that's just where I'm at. So to answer your question, I'd rather have Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase. Casey, a few minutes ago, it looked like you had something on your mind.
To answer your question, I would have had the receiver duo. I'm not messing with the offense. I mean, it's the same argument with you lose Trey, it's still the worst defense out there. You lose out on being able to pay guards, then it's still one of the best offenses out there. It was one of the worst guard duos in the NFL. I think it was the bottom 2 starting guards in the NFL, Volson and Kappa, that being. So, yeah, I mean, I'm keeping that offense the same. I know what I've got there. And that's just something that you look at, like the Eagles, who have paid everyone on the offensive side of the football and have been able to hit in the draft and make the defense younger. That's just the way you got to do things. The Eagles just let go 2 of their star D linemen, Milton Williams and Sweat. And we're over here arguing about Trey Hendrickson and what he provides. That's clearly not how you build a Super Bowl winning defense. I mean, you can pay a guy like, if you want to model your game after the Chiefs, you can pay a guy like Chris Jones, and then you got to build the rest of it pretty young. And that's all we're really asking for at this point. Pay Trey Hendrickson whatever amount of money you have left after fixing the guard spot, and then you go from there. Now, whether he agrees to that, who knows? But that's for another time. The Bengals at this moment have a lot of positives, keeping the band together. 8-4 last year with T in the lineup, and 32-17 all time when the 2, that being Jamar and T, playing together. And like I said before in the other segment, breaking contract structures, becoming a modern day franchise, those are all things that you got to applaud the team for. I was actually surprised that T was less than $30 million, that 28. Yeah. Was not expecting that because he would have probably gotten more than that in the open market. And that means that there was definitely negotiations on both sides getting a little more here by the guarantees, and we're going to get that 4th year. That means we're going to have a lot of control over both guys for many years to come. And, the fact that they were able to do it at this point makes it to where they can still save the off season in my mind. This was like bare minimum for me for them to have a successful season.
I agree.
Now they can really get over the edge here with one really good guard, or maybe 2 guard signings. Who knows? Maybe it's Brandon Sheriff and Zadarius Smith, and that's your combo. You go into 1-year deals for both guys, and you feel pretty solid about getting another pass rusher. You feel pretty solid about one of the guard spots, and then you just use the draft to kind of supplement the rest of the needs. Or you go with Tevin Jenkins for a long-term extension. Now the door's open for any of those things, right? Maybe we do get Tevin Jenkins and it's 2 years guaranteed for his contract and he's here for 4 years. Who knows? I mean, that's now those top-tier free agents in my mind are free game. They have opened Pandora's box, right? And that's something to be very excited about. We'll see what they do here in the near future. But as of right now, very excited that not only did they kind of keep their promise about trying to keep the band together, they've also become, in my eyes now, they are a modern-day franchise. I can stop saying they're not a modern-day franchise. They have closed the book on that. That chapter's over, and we're ready to move on.
You never want to operate under the ruse that more money is coming. You surely don't. Financially, you never want to do that. That being said, the way that the salary cap has gone the past 4 or 5 years, this feels like a comfortable investment. 3 years ago, $70 million to 2 wide receivers would be absolute lunacy. But the way that the NFL keeps churning out money, keeps generating money, has made this possible.
I mean, how many players around the league have we said that, man, that looks like a steal? Tyreek Hill is only being paid $30 million a year. And Jamar Chase is 40-something. It just happens. Over time, these deals end up looking like steals, and the longer that you have these guys, the more time that passes for that to happen. And 4 years for both guys, I mean, that cannot be understated.
Cincinnati Bengals haters famously said after Joe Burrow signed his extension, and this is the final thing I'll say before we go to break, famously said, he better be worth $250 million. The $250 million man, he's now the 8th highest paid wide quarterback in the league. And he's certainly better than that, better than the 8th best quarterback in the league. The Cincinnati Bengals offense shored up that it's going to have elite playmakers for the foreseeable future. What else is in the foreseeable future? The first 4 up in Dayton. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk some college basketball here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Yesterday was Selection Sunday, which means, hey, it's the best time of the year if you're a college basketball fan. The first 4, Tuesday and Wednesday, and for some local fans, Xavier Musketeer fans, they are going to be playing in the first 4. Paul Fritschner, welcome to the show, host of the Rebound Rundown, one of the co-hosts of the Sean Miller podcast. Paul, it's great to see your smiling face, and I know it was a fantastic Sunday for you and really all of college basketball because they're going to get to see the Xavier Musketeers play in the first 4.
No doubt about it. Really, this first 4, Reed, first of all, thank you for having me on. But this first 4 overall, when you look at North Carolina, Texas, Xavier, San Diego State, I mean, this is a fun first 4. You can argue all day about whether North Carolina should or should not have been in. I do not think they should have been in the tournament. But even still, they have some talent. They're a fun team when they play well. They didn't win a whole lot of games that mattered this year, but on Xavier's end, the relief of them getting into the tournament after the roller coaster that was this season, it was definitely a special one last night.
It's it's funny that you said that with North Carolina. You think that they shouldn't be in. Part of the reason is because they didn't win many big games. When the graphic comes up of all the bubble teams, what's the first thing that people point out for Xavier? And it's a fair gripe is Q1 quad one games. Xavier was 1-9, I believe. For a short moment there, UConn bumped up to a quad, but essentially they won 1 of 10 chances to be a quad one win. Do you think that's a fair criticism of Xavier? Because I know that's the first thing that people look at and they go, this team shouldn't be in. They went 1-9 in quad one games.
You're right. And by the letter of the law, they did. But what I will say is the committee knows and is smart enough and evaluates it close enough that UConn was, 1 or 2 spots away from being quad one. Creighton was in the 30s as well. They were a few spots away. Butler was a few spots away. It wasn't like Xavier was just completely beating up on Q3 and 4 the whole season. So a lot of those Q2 wins were close. They had some high-quality wins. They beat you. Look, Xavier beat every team in the Big East besides St. John's. This was, I think, the 3rd highest Big East win total since realignment for Xavier, winning 13 games in Big East play. They only won 2 fewer games than 2 years ago when they made the Sweet 16 in Big East play. I know that the expectations before the season would have been a lot higher than an 11 seed, but even still, after what happened in November and December, the fact that they got in, it was to me, the selection show was a roller coaster in and of itself, because when it said San Diego State and North Carolina, I thought for sure that meant Xavier was out. I was not personally surprised at all that North Carolina got in. I know a lot of people were beyond shocked. And in the end, I was shocked that I think West Virginia being out is one of the most prominent exclusions from a tournament that I can ever remember. I mean, I thought when they weren't getting announced, I was like, man, did West Virginia get bumped up to a 9 seed? Like, they were projected as a 10 coming into the day. Maybe they got bumped up to a 9 here, and I'm just missing them until the last region. No, they did. They missed the tournament completely. So for North Carolina to be in over them, and for Indiana too, I thought Indiana had a stronger argument than North Carolina. That road win at Michigan State. I thought when North Carolina got their name announced, you had at least 2 teams that the committee might have put in over Xavier. I was nervous that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. They didn't. I had confidence when I saw Vanderbilt got a 10 seed. I looked at my wife Lizzie and I said, all right, I think we're in a good spot here, because Vanderbilt was a team I thought was on the bubble coming into the day. They got a 10 seed. Fellas, the seeding and the bracketing of this was one of the most bizarre I can ever remember. Teams were all over the place. Matchups were all over the place. I'm not sure what the committee was looking at for a lot of this. Gonzaga was an 8 seed. That'll be a top 10 Ken Pom matchup if Gonzaga and Houston win their first win their first game and match up in the second game. I don't know what the hell happened yesterday on the committee, but it doesn't matter, because in the end, we're splitting hairs. West Virginia was out, but in the end, I think the committee got it mostly right from a bubble perspective, outside of West Virginia, which is inexcusable.
So I think last time I had you on this show, I'm paraphrasing a quote that you said, but you said something along the lines of, who knows what the heck the committee is going to do. And I think that's the way that a lot of people feel after Sunday. The more that
sorry, we can't swear on the show, can we? We're on AM radio. That's my bad.
I said heck.
No, I said hell. My bad.
It's all right. Yeah. When you look at this committee, when you get off of Selection Sunday, it feels like every year we understand less, or we understand more, or we have more questions and more answered. Did you learn any lessons yesterday, about how the committee looks at this whole thing, looks at this whole picture?
Brands matter. Brands absolutely matter. If that's one thing that we learned yesterday, it is that having a brand, if we didn't know it already, brands matter. And that's why I thought that North Carolina was going to get in. When it came down to it, I thought North Carolina was going to get the edge over a Boise State or a Colorado State if they hadn't won the Mountain West, or a UC Irvine that potentially had a case. I just thought that, look, this is a North Carolina team that didn't win any game this year that mattered, but they have the names on their team to kind of say, like RJ Davis, these guys to say, all right, we can put North Carolina in. I think that at the end of the day, looking forward to next year, that's something I'm just going to keep in mind, especially with this selection committee, that committee members rotate on and off, but it's hard to ignore. At the end of the day, guys, this is a TV show, right? And their job is to put on the most entertaining product for the television networks that are going to air these 67 games over the next 3 weeks. They need to put on a product that is entertaining, and part of the way to make that entertaining is to put some big brands in the field, like it or not.
I'm with you. I just like if the idea is how to get as many big brands in there, leaving Indiana out seems like a miss, right? Because
I agree.
You and I are Xavier fans. Putting Indiana over Xavier is a much better. Selling tickets at the first four is one thing, but in terms of getting people to watch the thing, a lot more people are going to watch Indiana over Xavier. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So
I'm just not sure why Indiana didn't make it over North Carolina. Like, if they were going to use that last spot for a big brand, because the committee came on afterwards and said that North Carolina was the last team in, which means that if Memphis had lost in the AAC title game yesterday, that the first team that would have gotten bumped out was North Carolina. I'm surprised from a branding perspective that they went with North Carolina instead of Indiana, because, Indiana's closer. They have a little more cachet to their resume this year. I don't get the North Carolina thing.
My question to you, and hi, Paul. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm doing great, Paul. My question to you about North Carolina is, if they thought North Carolina, whatever they did this year was great, they thought, I guess, clearly the ACC was worth something if North Carolina got in with one quad one win. I guess they thought their conference schedule was tough enough. How in the world, and this was I believe the third team announced, how in the world is Louisville an 8 seed? Because that was, and I'm going to read this off real quick before you answer. Seed of AP number 13 teams entering Selection Sunday, 2024, and I'm just going to go down the list of 2012. Illinois 3, Virginia 4, UCLA 4, Texas, Purdue, Tennessee, all 3. Purdue got a 5 in 2016. They were ranked 13th. And Iowa State, UC, Florida, Georgetown. Nobody has even been a 6 seed. How in the world, and I know they're playing the game in Lexington, but how in the world do they get discredited so much and then go on top of that and double down and say, North Carolina, we're going to credit you more than Louisville?
I have no idea. And that's where I say, when I was wondering if Xavier was going to get in or not, initially, when you see the 6-11 game right away in that first region, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. But when you see Louisville as an 8 seed and the way that the rest of that first region broke out, I just had no idea what was going on. And Louisville, think about what Louisville did this year. They came up a little bit short against Duke in the ACC title game. And how do they get rewarded? A 9 seed, a really good Creighton team. Creighton got a worse seed than UConn did. And Creighton all of a sudden now plays Louisville. And Louisville, even if they win, even if they beat Creighton, and I'm not sure they'll beat Creighton, if they beat Creighton, now you get the number 1 overall seed in the second game to go to the Sweet 16. The ACC being all over the place. I mean, Clemson, they get slotted as the 5 seed, which is fine, but they get McNeese as a 12. I know all the 5-12s are usually tough, but like Clemson got no favors there. Duke's path to me is a cakewalk into at least the Elite 8, if not the Final 4. I think Duke has no problem with, unless Cooper Flagg is hurt, unless he can't go. Obviously, that would change the whole dynamic of the tournament. But I don't know, Elliot. I have no idea what was going on with Louisville, and Pat Kelsey talked on Kentucky Sports Radio last night with Matt Jones about it, and just how he didn't understand it either.
It makes no sense. Once they announced that, I knew it was going to be a chaotic Selection Sunday. I saw a lot of Michigan fans upset yesterday. You win 4 days in March. You win the Big Ten tournament. How are you rewarded? How about one of the toughest 12 seeds in the tournament? You get a 5.
That's a quad 1 game. That's a quad 1 game.
My question to you is, and again, clearly there is no rules here. There's no rules. Every preconceived notion you have about Selection Sunday and what it means, these quad 1, quad 2 wins. North Carolina somehow gets in. Then you go on a magical run in the Big Ten. They don't really get rewarded, Michigan. And now we're looking at this whole bracket and being very, very confused at what the conference tournament means. So in your eyes, like let's just look at Xavier, for example. Let's say they beat Marquette. Do you think they were already penciled in the first four? Like, do you think beating Marquette and then losing the next game would have changed anything? Would they have just been in the field? Because there weren't really any bid stealers, but I think they had their minds made up before everything was completed.
And that's exactly what I said the last time you guys had me on this show, was that going into conference tournament week, you have to adjust your expectations and realize that the committee does not care about conference tournament week. And they showed it again. I want to go back and like back that up and make sure that I'm not getting over my skis on that, because I didn't really get a chance to go back to all these teams. But for the most part, my initial gut reaction was that, yeah, the committee just completely devalues or doesn't value, because they're already bracketing the field, what's going on during the conference tournament week. If Xavier had beaten Marquette, look, Xavier was the second team in Dayton, so they had two teams below them. They had Texas above them, which means that Xavier would have only had to leap Texas and then potentially one other team to get out of Dayton. Adding another quad one win, maybe, but I just don't see it. I think Xavier was always Dayton bound, and barring 3 bid stealers, was always going to be in the tournament.
You say that it's and that's a reoccurring theme amongst people that watch the most college basketball, is that these conference tournaments don't matter. That being said, it has to matter if you're going to even begin to explain how West Virginia doesn't make it, right? Because they lose to Colorado. They lose. It has to, I think, matter if you're going to explain how North Carolina making a decent run in the ACC tournament. Like they have to matter if you're going to begin to explain those two choices. No?
The only thing I would say about West Virginia, though, is that the committee chair got on afterwards, and they were talking about the committee chair. A couple of the guys from the committee got on, and they were talking about Tucker DeVries being injured. Fellas, Tucker DeVries hasn't played since December 6th. He hasn't played. They beat Kansas at Kansas. They beat Iowa State without him, and they still didn't get in, which, again, makes me wonder, was West Virginia just never in because they went to vote for West Virginia, saw that Tucker DeVries wasn't on the team, and said, But then what happens with Iowa State? TJ Otzelberger gets on the podium right after the selection show and says, you know what, our best player, Keyshawn Gilbert, he's not playing. They just waited until after the selection show to do that. And the Duke had to write to the committee or put out a statement and say that Cooper Flagg was going to be fine next week. I mean, this is the same thing with college football. Florida State, last year. It's just these injuries playing into it. I do agree, though, on the West Virginia thing, that loss to Colorado, maybe that was the killer. Like, maybe that is what flipped West Virginia out, North Carolina in. Hard to say, but don't lose to Colorado.
The final question I got, here's what we'll do, Paul. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, me and Elliot have a few more questions. We'll have a quick segment with you.
Okay.
If you give us some more minutes.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back here on 1410 Wing AM. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing, Casey McAllister, and we have Paul Fritschner, host of the Rebound Rundown and co-host of the Sean Miller podcast. Obviously, Xavier playing Wednesday night, 9:10, I believe, is the tip time up there in Dayton UD Arena, as they'll be playing in the first four. So Wednesday, Xavier's in the tournament. How are we looking? How confident are you in this game on Wednesday night to get into the official field of 64?
I'll put a little caveat on this that you can only have so good of a matchup as an 11 seed, right? I mean, you can't have the most ideal matchup because you're an 11 seed and that's why you're in Dayton and all of these games are going to be tough. But personally, even beyond Dayton, if Xavier's able to win, I don't think Xavier could have asked for much better this weekend. You have Texas on Wednesday night, who has one of the best freshmen in the SEC in Trey Johnson, a phenomenal scorer. But they kind of go as he goes. They have Caden Shedrick on the interior. He's 6'11". He's good. He's not great. I think that's an advantage for Zach Fremantle. This is going to be a very fun game for the guards and the wings. I think this is a game that could get up and down, and you could see some good shooting in this game. I think Xavier is going to have the opportunity to get their looks from three in this game. Xavier is favored for a reason on Wednesday night. They're slight favorites, but they're favored for a reason. Texas is healthy now, which they haven't been healthy for a large part of this season. But Texas limped to the finish line. They won a couple games in the SEC tournament. But I think that if you're Xavier, unless you were playing maybe San Diego State, you couldn't have asked for much better here in the first four. And then beyond the first four, you have Illinois, who, when Illinois is playing at their best, is a 2 or 3 seed. But when they're playing at their worst, they're a 8 or 9 seed, 10 seed. And what they do, they split the middle. They're a 6 seed here. Illinois has some bad losses. And then on the other side, you have Kentucky. If you're able to win, I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but if you're able to win those, if you're able to win those two, you have Kentucky, who has shown a ton of vulnerability this year, and Lamont Butler is obviously coming back from an injury. I don't think that if you're a Xavier fan, you could have asked for much more. Illinois would be a challenge, but Texas on Wednesday night. I think that this is a matchup Xavier will like going into it, and that there's a reason they're favored in this one.
Yeah, NCAA tournament, yada, yada, yada. What about the Crown?
Well, I was going to ask you.
The Crown Invitational. Historic Crown.
Well, I was going to ask you, Elliot. So, I used to work at Chatterbox Sports, and I know that when I worked at Chatterbox Sports, there was a bunch of eateries right in downtown Hamilton. And if you went a little farther down past downtown Hamilton, there was a very fine establishment, Burger King. And when you go into Burger King, they have these little, paper crowns. And I just thought maybe you'd pick one of those up and put it on for this show.
Oh, it's so good.
That's a good question.
It's so good to hear that. It's so good to hear it. Who do you got in the first round of the Crown, UC or DePaul?
Is that who they're playing?
Yeah.
What a great basketball tournament.
I don't know if DePaul plays like they did the other day. What's the availability going to be like? That's my biggest question. Who's all playing? Like, what is just in general? I'm not asking UC specific. I just mean in general. What is the Crown doing when they open or when they play after the transfer portal is open? I just don't understand the logistics of it.
It makes no sense. As far as I know, you have to have 7 scholarship players available. I guess that's the case for UC because otherwise they wouldn't be playing in it. But I think it's a disgrace. I think the whole tournament's a sham. These teams are contractually obligated to play in a tournament that nobody wants to play in. So I understand money. I get all that. But at the end of the day, extending this UC season is a travesty, and I think it's a bad look really for the entire Bearcats program to be playing in this. I don't get it either, Paul. I don't understand the Crown. I don't get it. That one, by the way, that was a joke question. I have one last actual tournament question for you. The SEC 14 teams, justified or not? And then what do you think the farthest SEC team is? Who do you think goes the furthest out of all the SEC teams?
Okay, that's a good question. Let me pull up real quick here. I want to make sure one thing before I answer it. 14 teams I think is justified. I know people would clap back at me with the conference record, but if you flip the conference record to winning some of those games in the non-conference and then you took losses, in the non-conference instead. If you just flipped where the teams were playing, like it's a weird looking number and you don't like it, but I can understand where the committee's not caring as much about bad conference records when there are so many teams in these big super conferences now. So yeah, I probably would have taken, well, for one, I would have taken West Virginia over another SC. I would have taken West Virginia over Texas into the first four. So from that perspective, but there's no argument necessarily with Texas because they have so many quad one wins. They stacked losses, but they have so many quad one wins that it's hard to argue against it. As far as a SEC team that's going to go the farthest in the field, Florida. I think Florida could win the national championship.
That's who I've got. That's who I've got.
I don't think Florida has a weakness anywhere right now with the way they're playing. It's a shame to me being in the same region as St. John's because I really wanted to pick St. John's to the Final Four. I just don't know if I'm going to do that here with how well Florida has been playing lately. Auburn's looked pretty vulnerable in the last week or two. Maybe that's just because they took their foot off the gas and they'll turn it back up a notch. Tennessee, it wouldn't shock me if Tennessee got clipped in the first two rounds, in the second round or the third round. Wouldn't clip me there. It wouldn't shock me if they did. Alabama's got to get through Duke. I think Florida is your answer there, Elliot.
Paul, last time Xavier played NCAA tournament game, it was against Texas, Sweet 16, a couple years ago. Before that game, you riled up the troops and you marched them into the arena, leading them into battle. Have we worked on a new pitch before we get into battle at UD Arena for Wednesday?
So let me ask you this, because you're a little more familiar probably with that area than I am. What is the grand stage of Dayton, Ohio that I could do that?
You can get them all to go to Kramer's Pizza, Kramer's Carryout. It's a great place. They only serve 40s there, and they serve great pizza. And you get them all riled up. You get the troops, and then admittedly you have to get in your cars and drive a little bit to UD Arena. But it'll be a beautiful little I don't know. You'll just charge them in there to UD. My favorite college basketball arena.
Are you going to be there
Wednesday? So. Right now, the answer is no. But I've heard of a strategy. I've heard of a strategy that might possibly get. I used to have a plug that could get me to Dayton games. Unfortunately, he no longer works at the University of Dayton anymore. So I can't call it him. He moved on up to the University of Illinois Chicago. But so. All right. We'll see.
Well, if you make it there, I'll see you.
Well, I got to know where the pep rally is.
I will let you know. As soon as I lock down the drive-through, I will let you know.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
See you,
Paul,
brother.
thank you for coming on. Xavier Musketeers play Wednesday night in the first four up at the University of Dayton. Paul, the host of the Rebound Rundown and co-host of the Sean Miller podcast. Thank you for coming on, Paul.
Yep, you got it. See you guys.
See you, Paul.
We'll be right back on 1410 Wing AM. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Remouse, filling in for Justin Kinner. We've had a fun show today, talking Bengals, talking March Madness, but we have a very special treat as Congressman Warren Davidson has joined the studio. Warren, I've never interviewed a congressman before live on air, so this is gonna be new for me. But I'm glad to have you on here and talk some sports.
Yeah, my first time on Chatterbox. Great to join you.
Yeah, it's going to be, Casey is the one that kind of orchestrated this whole thing, and he's like, he wants to come in and talk about it. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I saw you on Friday nights at the Miami baseball game. You were throwing out the first pitch because you helped Christopher Roa get a visa. He's from the Dominican Republic, and you got him a visa to come up here and play. How did that whole thing come about? Did someone call you or call your office and say, hey, we have this player that wants to come play ball for Miami?
Yes, we had a couple Miami alums reach out to our office. I think it was just full court press by Miami trying to say, hey, who in our network can help? And, whether it's former baseball players like Don Crane or board member like Zach, and reached out and said, hey, could you try to see what you can do to help? And so we said, well, just create casework. Here's how you do casework. And we do that for everybody. I mean, it's not like we just do it for Miami or we do it for people we know. So constituents call us and we do casework on immigration and Social Security, veterans issues. So just treated it the same way. We did the casework. We sent the inquiry into, in this case, the State Department to say, hey, what's the plan here? And we had to, follow the facts, get the information. And ultimately, we were able to successfully get him in time for the start of the semester.
You threw out the first pitch. I assume that's one of the many roles from time to time is you got to throw out a first pitch at different, ball games. Does it get nerve-wracking ever having to throw the first pitch? I thought it was a strike for what it's worth, but does it ever get nerve-wracking being up there on the mound?
Well, if the imaginary batter had swung and missed, it would have been a strike. It was high. It was over the plate at least, and I would just keep thinking, don't bounce it. And so I won't say it was the best pitch I've thrown, but yeah, you're coming out there. There's no place to hide. You're standing on the pitcher's mound, and you can't fake it. Either it's a ball or a strike, or it makes it or it doesn't. It didn't have much heat on it, I will say, but it made it there.
Have you ever had to? What's the biggest ball game that you've had to throw out the first? Have you? I assume at Great American Ballpark. Have they had that down there yet?
I caught a first pitch there. So we had someone who had ALS, and she threw out a first pitch. Oh wow! And so it was a close thing. We had been helping her and some others with ALS. Just terrible disease, and obviously with some ties to baseball history. But we were able to help with that case, and we were invited to catch a first pitch. Okay. So I've not yet thrown a first pitch at Great American, but who knows? Maybe this will be the year.
Yeah, we got to get you down there. It's my understanding that Congress has a baseball game. Have you ever played in it?
Yeah, I played for 2 years. Before I was 50, I was like, okay, well, once I'm 50, we got some people that are more young and more fit and a deeper bench. But at the time, I played second base and shortstop mostly as a kid, and they said, well, you're pretty fast. We'll put you in left field.
Oh, really?
I said, I'm pretty fast. I mean, now I am up about 30 pounds since those days, but they grade on a curve in Congress. So I played 2 years. Once I played about half the game, and then the second year I played the whole game. Went 2 for 3 with 1 RBI, so decent, not the greatest, but it's a game that raises usually about $1.5 million to $2 million for DC-based charities. Republicans play Democrats, and it's real baseball on the Nationals field with a pretty good crowd in attendance.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I was wondering because that was my next question. What position did they have you at? Because I saw the arm on Friday night, so I didn't know if you. If they let the young guys pitch, who pitches, if it's a rotation. Did you ever get asked, like, hey, you want to pitch? And
no. I've never been invited to pitch. I think we did have a good long throw from left field with a guy that hit a ball out to the wall. He is a Democrat, played in the NFL, and came up, and we knew to play deep, but, man, he jacked the ball, and we got a nice long throw. hit the relay down to third base line, and he chose not to make the throw to home. I think we would have had him personally. I still regret that he did not make the play to home to get the throw. But anyway, that was probably the deepest, longest, most accurate throw I made in the Congressional baseball game.
There you go. Elliot?
Well, I was going to say, now, you haven't thrown out the first pitch of JVP yet. When we talk about the Cincinnati Reds, last year there was a point, I think around, beginning of September. The Reds' rotation was down to, I believe, 0 pitchers. If the Reds called you up, would you be willing to do it? Now, because I don't know if you saw this before. Will Ferrell used to go to, spring training, and he used to play baseball for I think he played for every single baseball team. If they called you up during the spring and said, we just want you to be our full-time DH, we'll give you a DH during the spring, would you say yes?
I would do it even for league minimum. It was still like the dream job as a kid. My original dream job was play second base for the Reds, and right around 7th or 8th grade, you start going, that probably isn't going to happen. You start thinking, what am I going to do? And I started looking at it, going, well, I don't even know if I'll be varsity in high school. If I am, it'll be way late. It's not going to be quick, and so you're like, it's probably not going to be a major league career for me. So somewhere in there, I started going, well, who jumps out of airplanes? I want to go be an Army Ranger. And that I could do. But, yeah, it is an honor to be on a Major League Baseball field and to have gotten to play a game, even though it's, in Congress there, thrill of a lifetime to get to do it and then raise money for a good cause. But, Major League players, some of the guys that I've met that do it, they're just different level people. I talked to a guy who, played in the NFL for about 5 years, and he's like, look, everybody trained hard. I'd like to say I trained hard, but I know there are people that trained harder. At some level, it's like a gift. You're just genetically able to do things that other people aren't. And it is fun to watch them do their thing.
Favorite Reds player growing up?
Oh, as a kid, I was a Joe Morgan guy. He was the second baseman. I loved him.
Guy.
But the whole Big Red Machine was pretty awesome. And, I was really, grateful that President Trump was trying to push for Pete Rose to be treated with some respect for the sport. The reality is any number of athletes have had personal failures, and the way Pete Rose has been treated by Major League Baseball is shameful.
So he's a Hall of Famer in your eyes.
He should unquestionably should have been celebrated in the Hall of Fame. And instead he was treated badly, and I think it reflects poorly on baseball.
I agree. When it comes to the Reds this year, you bring in Terry Francona. Last year, again, I would say every expectation every Reds fan had was not met. This year, God willing, the Reds can stay healthy enough. I know we're dealing with an injury to Tyler Stevenson that I'm not very happy about. Outside of that, they look okay in terms of health. Would you say the Reds, with Terry Francona, are going to exceed expectations this year?
Well, boy, I sure hope so. But one expectation I and a lot of fans had is, hey, you don't have to wait to the last minute to sign Ellie De La Cruz to a long-term deal. I think you got to make this guy the franchise. Of course, the way salaries in baseball are going, it might cost the value of the franchise.
Oh, yeah.
It's Cincinnati just doesn't have as deep of pockets as Los Angeles, and that's where we lose a lot of our talent. But he was the bright spot. I had some strikeouts, but Golden Glove fielder, epic bat, just got to get the strikeouts down. I'm still a Hunter Green fan. I love to see him throw. Hopefully they can build out the roster and be impressive this year.
Ballpark food. If you had to rank your ballpark foods when you're there, you can throw in a beer as well. If you want to count beer for food, I'll allow it. How would you rank your ballpark foods when you get to GABP?
Boy, it's a tough battle. I'm glad they have Skyline. I'm a Skyline guy, so there was a period of time in there in the dark days when they didn't always have Skyline. They got Skyline and La Rosa's. You can't go wrong with the two. And in a good long game, you can get a little chili cheese dog. And then you can go get some La Rosa's and be pretty good.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask.
You want to ask it? You ask this one.
So there's a new concoction.
I have not tried the blended Grater's ice cream.
Okay, well that's not what it was. You can take a Skyline chili dog, get a slice of pepperoni pizza from La Rosa's, fold it up, and it makes a Sky Rosa. So you get all of Cincinnati in one bite.
I haven't even heard of this thing. I have to try it. I won't be there for opening day this year. Normally, if we're not in session, I'll go to opening day. I might have to skip votes. What are we voting on?
Elliot asked who your favorite Red is. Obviously, you grew up just up I-75 in Sydney, so you said you're a Bengals fan. Do you have an all-time favorite Bengal?
Well, all that's been eclipsed by the current roster. I mean, I'm a huge Joe Burrow fan.
Yeah, baby.
Politics, whatever everybody thinks. Oh, you think politics all the time? I'm sure he probably votes a little differently than I might if he was in Congress. And I'm sure in Congress I probably vote a little different than he wish. But on the football field, this guy is amazing. I mean, I love his story. I love his game. I love the way he's defending his people, saying, I want this team. Hopefully he gets some guards that keep him safe.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the guy's been brutalized and still incredibly effective. I mean, I love Joe Burrow. And, hopefully we build out the defense. I got to say, I love Wilson, The 55 jersey. I turned 55 this year. I might have to get me a little 55 jersey for the season.
I'll tell you what. If the Bengals now, I tried to do this with Marty, and Marty said no. So I'll let you have this. This is going to be the craziest question you've probably ever had. What will it take? I would do it if the Bengals win a Super Bowl. Are you a bigger Reds fan or a Bengals fan?
Yeah, probably. At this point, I'd say a bigger Bengals fan. Historically, I would say Reds. But, baseball just hasn't stayed as competitive as football.
Yeah.
I want to love the Reds. I love baseball. If I can go watch either game, right now, if I could only get one ticket, I'd probably go to a Bengals game.
Yeah, okay. I respect that. What would you do? Let's say the Bengals go to another Super Bowl and they win the thing. What would your celebration be downtown? Because I imagine it would be similar. I can't say it for sure, but I imagine the streets of Cincinnati would be looking like a little bit like Philadelphia. People on the poles and everything. What would your big celebration be?
Boy, I don't know, but I would probably be at the game. I mean, I really wanted to go to the last Super Bowl. I regret that I did not. And if the Bengals go, I'm going to find a way to get there. But you basically got to take out a second mortgage to get a Super Bowl ticket.
God,
I mean, good grief, these things are pricey.
I think it's more than my net worth. I think one Super Bowl ticket's more than my entire net worth.
When it comes to your colleagues in Congress, do you guys talk about, like when you're not talking about bills and stuff like that? You guys ever talk, give each other jabs about your sports teams? Like if the Bengals beat the Steelers, you get a congressman from PA and go like, "Hey, good game on Sunday."
Oh yeah. We have good camaraderie. I mean, some of the just like anywhere else. I mean, in a lot of ways, Army life was a decent replica for Congress. So you have, it's different because half the group you don't necessarily agree with. But I will say, there's a handful of Democrats that I've built pretty good relationships with. I remember one year, Ed Perlmutter's from Colorado. He's no longer in Congress, but, we grabbed a beer and watched Army play Air Force. And, those kinds of things still happen. One of the funniest things this year, Buddy Carter is a member of Congress from Georgia, and we have a colleague, Rudy Yakum from South Bend, Indiana, and they had a wager, and it was just really nice to see Buddy Carter, a Georgia grad, wearing a Fighting Irish bright green Fighting Irish jersey. And we all of us, there's a handful of members of Congress who went to Notre Dame at some point. I went there for business school. Rudy went there for business school. And we were really loving seeing Buddy Carter wear it. So you have some of those kind of friendly bets.
The Army-Navy game, where do you rank it amongst all sports games?
I mean, it's not the best football ever, but it's definitely the best rivalry. I mean, and look, Ohio State, Michigan is a good approximation for it. And almost always way better football. But, back during COVID, it's hard to believe that's been 5 years now. But when COVID was going on, I was like, if there's only one football game this year, it'll be the Army-Navy game. If they had to play in hazmat suits, they would still play that game somehow. And, records don't matter going into that game. This year, Army should have beaten Navy by record. Navy came out and just way outperformed Army on the football field. So, I could go through all these great Army-Navy games, and the rivalry is just like nothing else.
Yeah, I agree.
How many Army-Navy games have you gotten out to? Do you go out there quite a bit? Have you been to a couple of them?
Well, I went to one when I was at the prep school. I went to the 4 O's there, so that was 5. And then, most years I end up going. And certainly as a board member, I was on the board for a while, 6 years. I think I went to 5 out of the 6 for that, and then probably 7 or 8 otherwise. So it's been a while. it's hard to believe this year will be my 30th year since I graduated. So I haven't been to 30 games, but I've probably been to 20.
The final question I have, I think West Point is, obviously it's such a high honor to get to go to West Point. What was it like going to school at West Point?
I mean, I felt special every day, and I think particularly so because, most people go out of high school. And, when I told my high school guidance counselor I thought maybe I'd be in the Army and go to West Point, she literally laughed because she thought it was crazy, and it was. I wasn't the kind of guy that was going to get straight into West Point. And she kind of helped me kind of recognize what it would take and why that wasn't very likely to happen. So she encouraged me to make some other plans. I did, and I enlisted in the Army, and my chain of command helped me go to West Point a different way. And, I knew I was getting a second chance, really, not just to get there, but really in a lot of ways that so much shapes your life out of that. And then every time I've been there, whether it's for a reunion, a visit, or as a board member, it just feels really special. It's an incredible place.
I know, and forgive me if I am a bit mistaken in this, but from what I understand is when kids from this area are accepted into West Point, how they find out is from a call. Like, I believe you're one of the people that talked to them. At least I know a Hamiltonian was up for it, and he was hopefully waiting on a call from you. Someone who graduated from West Point, went to West Point. What's that honor like to change someone's life and give them a call and be like, hey, you're going to get to go to West Point?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a board that reviews all the applicants. So when someone wants to go to West Point, you can't just fill out a regular application. You have to be nominated by a member of Congress. And so we have a board that meets with these guys. And my board members will say, this is one of my favorite days every single year, because the young men and women who are willing to volunteer and go serve, not just to go to college, it's a great deal on college, it's free. It's sort of like joining the military. It's free to join, but it could end up costing you everything, right? Because you're committing to serve our country, and hopefully in times of peace, but historically some period of that's involved war. And the kind of talent that people are bringing to the application, just like my guidance counselor was helping me see, I mean, you don't really have the kind of grades. You don't really, you wrestle, but they're not recruiting you. Right. Things like that. These people are impressive, and so when you get to make a call and see how overjoyed these all highly qualified people are, because a lot of them don't get accepted, it's impressive. And President Trump was able to make somebody's day at the joint address to Congress, State of the Union. And I find out a lot more privately, but you remember that feeling when you first find out, oh, I'm going to get to go. So it is incredibly special, and I get to relive it when I let people know. And it's particularly special when I let them know about West Point, and okay, the Naval Academy and Air Force Academy are pretty cool too.
Final question I have for you. You were a wrestler for the Sydney Yellow Jackets. What was the career high point?
I will say I wrestled at prep school, which is sort of like an extra year between high school and West Point. So when I went from Germany back to go to West Point, they sent me to this prep school in New Jersey. And I was wrestling at a tournament at Princeton. And so it was kind of like their JV team versus our prep school. And I pancaked a guy and got the pin. That was my favorite match ever.
That's awesome. All right, well, Warren, thank you so much for being in here for our listeners and our viewers. We're gonna end the show right now because we're gonna have a talk with Warren after the show. So thank you so much, Warren, for being here. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. And
it's an honor to join you guys. I love the program, and I can't wait to hear how you guys cover the season.
Oh yeah, thank you.
It's gonna be great. Well, that does it for us here. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner. This has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. For Elliot Rearing, Casey McAllister, we thank you for tuning in on 1410 Wing AM.